Hi, my name is Caroline and I am a studio instructor here at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. Today I'm going to share with you two watercolor techniques that you can use at home. These two techniques are called a glaze and a graded wash. So let's get started. In front of me I have my watercolor paper, my watercolor, and a cup of brushes with some water. Now to start I'm going to select my brush. I'm using my wide brush for this. And I have a little bit of water on my brush, and then I'm going to load up my brush with some pigment. To get started, I'm going to use this nice green today. And I'm starting by using the wet on dry technique, which is the first step for the glaze technique. So I just want to create a nice base of any one color. I'm making it nice and even, just sort of filling in some areas. And then we are going to wait and let this dry before we go to the next step to create our glaze. I'm just making sure my pigment is as even as I can get it in this little area. I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm also going to prepare for another glaze. Now I'm going to pick up this yellow, and same thing. This is first step of a glaze is to do wet on dry. I love these beautiful spring colors. And the most important thing with this technique is that you wait and let it be completely dry before you add the second layer. So we're gonna leave that like so. These will be our glaze. And in the meantime, we're going to learn about a graded wash. Now, a graded wash is when you move from dark to light in a color. So I'm going to pick up this purple. And I want this side closest to me to be as dark as I can possibly get it. So that means I want more pigment, less water right here. But we can always add more later, and I'll let you know how we do that as we move on. And now as I move to the other side of the page, I'm gradually, slowly adding more and more water. But notice how I am not adding more pigment, just water. Now you don't have to do it in lines like this, but this is a great skill building technique and exercise. Okay. And now that I've made it all the way to the other side, I want this to be lighter and this to be darker. So I'm going to use a paper towel as my eraser, and I'm actually just going to lift up some of this pigment. And I'm gonna get all the water out of this and just smooth this out. So, because I want it to be nice and smooth. Okay. Maybe a little more up, like that. And then back on this side, I'm just gonna add more pigment. So it's really a nice, rich, deep color. So, okay. So now you can see I made a little value scale within my watercolor. I've gone from dark to light. Now one way to challenge yourself as an artist is see how smooth you can get this gradation to go. A very fun exercise. You can also do this with a skinnier brush. So I have my small brush here. I'm just going to try some blue. I want this to be as dark as possible, but then as I move across the page, get lighter and lighter to make my scale. Now it's so light you can barely see it. You can always go back and add some more pigment to that side. Okay, so this is our graded wash. Now we're gonna go back and revisit our glaze. And a glaze is when you put one layer of watercolor down and then you wait for it to completely dry before you put the next layer on. Now I'm looking at my watercolor, it's still a little wet right here, so I'm gonna use the middle areas. I'm gonna start by using the exact same green and just doing another layer of that. You can see how nice and rich and deep that is. Very different effect. And I'm gonna use the same green on that yellow. Now I'll try my yellow. Now this is a great activity if you want to see what happens when you layer colors. And this is my favorite technique to use to really build up beautiful detail in your watercolor painting. You can layer this with all of the colors. Maybe we'll discover a unique color combination that you just fall in love with. Maybe we'll go blue. Notice how I like to clean my brush in between each color, so I keep my palette nice and clean, like so. Now, a great example of this in the VMFA collection is a title called Narcissus by artist Eugene Delacroix. Now, in this watercolor painting, it is a watercolor painting of a beautiful flower, and you can see that this artist uses both techniques. First, I'm going to visit the stems of the watercolor, and then we can talk about the petals. Now here is my base. I'm just going to build up a graded wash by using darker greens or maybe the same green to make a beautiful graded wash. And this creates the look of form, making your flower to start pop off the page with your value. And again, this is with the graded wash technique, like so. You can also let this dry and then add a layer on top, and that would be a glaze. You can also see how the artist uses this technique in the petals. So I want to encourage you to explore the glaze technique and the graded wash with your watercolors at home. Thank you again for joining me for watercolor techniques that you can explore.